we are maximizing Bitcoin per share as the main KPI. But again, the overlap between longevity and Bitcoiners is very strong in my opinion. And we will see lots of initiatives being launched other than what we have in our portfolio companies today. We own a portfolio company that do online coaching, digital exercise and nutrition coaching. But on top of that, we see a lot of initiatives could be launched. Nothing finalized yet, but that will definitely be where we will make our own niche.
I can teach yoga, but it's just so interesting, and I do think it's a very important point that this alignment between Bitcoin and longevity. Would you like maybe to expand a bit on the Bitcoin per share metrics that you use to evaluate your business?
As long as you can increase Bitcoin per share, then you need to have an operational discipline. Both on the operational side, you have to understand you can't use too much money. That's one. And eventually you have to issue financial instruments that benefit all shareholders.
Hi and welcome to the Financial Fox, the show where we explore how technology is reshaping finance, unlocking freedom and helping us invest smarter. I'm your host, Steffi. I've been in finance for over a decade now and in Bitcoin since 2017. This podcast is all about real conversation with forward-thinking minds to spark new ideas and give you insights that matters. Part of our Bitcoin for Corporations series. On the show today, I will be joined by Sander Andersen, CEO of H100, a publicly listed Swedish healthcare company, which was the first in Sweden to hold Bitcoin on its balance sheet. I'm really excited to have Sanders on the show so we can talk more about Bitcoin Treasury strategies, challenges, risks, and what his playbook looks like. Before we get into the interview, just a couple of things. If you are watching our videos, please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow Financial Fox on social media if you haven't done so already. You will find all the links in the descriptions, and remember that your support is so crucial for us to grow the channel so we can educate more people about Bitcoin. And please remember that the content on the show is for informational purposes only and not intended as financial advice. So any opinions expressed by me or my guests are ours alone and you should not act solely on the back of them. As always, do your own research, level up your skills and be accountable for your own decisions. With that being said, let's get Sanders on the show. Hi Sander, how are you doing?
Doing great, Steffi. Thank you so much for having me.
It's brilliant. We are doing a Bitcoin for Corporations series where we showcase, the leading companies that are integrating a Bitcoin Treasury strategy. And definitely I wanted to have you on, for your unique approach to it. You were, I think, the first in Sweden, right, to adopt a Bitcoin Treasury strategy.
That's correct, yeah.
Brilliant. So I've got lots of questions because I think what is happening is kind of like there is hype around something that should be considered a very sound strategy, which is always what happens, when there is a lot of talks and, it seems like a trend. Why starting a Bitcoin Treasury strategy? So tell us about your journey and how you thought around it.
Yeah, so my whole career, I have worked with business models that include digital community and digital distribution. Started in the health industry, gig economy, and was very early on building companies that utilize social media. So in 2017, I found crypto and I went full time into the industry in 2021. And in 2022, I moved to Lugano.
Nice.
So not many people know that in Lugano you can pay more or less everything with Bitcoin. And that has basically, first of all, given me a much more in-depth knowledge about how a society can be built around Bitcoin, but also had the opportunity to connect with a lot of Bitcoiners. So in 2022, I started a company called FinPeers, which is family office network investing now into Bitcoin strategies. And naturally, we saw, of course, Michael Saylor, what he did. but more importantly, Meta Planet with it. Okay, if a small hotel company can do this in Japan, I think we could see similar structures in Europe. That was basically together with the investors and family offices that we had in our network, we started to think about models where we could use Bitcoin in the balance sheet to create shareholder value. So yeah, that's basically how the idea came up. I think it's a lot of similarities between Bitcoiners and the longevity people. I had a digital health company that I had owned since 2016, and we did a reverse takeover and thought, okay, if we brand everything as H100, Healthy to 100, that could be a very cool brand and a very cool future business model that we can come back to on how, basically to build something unique. And here we are. We went public in April. First announcement of Bitcoin purchase in May, 22nd of May. And since then, we have raised close to 32 million US dollars.
Yeah. So you have around 200 Bitcoin, right, on the balance sheet. Listen, this is so interesting. I'm going to go off script because first of all, I think a great point that you brought up that not many people know is that actually you can pay in Bitcoin in Lugano. And that's kind of like, probably is the same in El Salvador, but it's not very common in Europe and in the US. So I'm going to have a question that I really need to ask you. Jack Dorsey said that Bitcoin needs to become a mean of payment. That's where it needs to go to be fully successful. Otherwise, it won't really be just being, a wealth protector and an investment asset. Do you agree with that? Do you see that happening? And if yes, when or where do you think we are with this trajectory?
I don't fully agree with it. I think it's multiple use cases for Bitcoin outside payment. I think we are moving into a future where most things are backed by Bitcoin, the same way you saw gold played a huge and very important role in our society for hundreds of years. So I believe that we will see Bitcoin backed products and backed financial products. I think we will see it in combination with stablecoin. It will be a means of payment as well. How long it's going to take, I don't know, but it will definitely happen. So local purchases is one thing, but cross-border transactions I think that's where Bitcoin can find a huge use case to being the settlement layer. If you want to do business with another country, with another currency, we would rather trade against Bitcoin than any other currency.
It's kind of becoming like a cyber weapon, isn't it? As more people and corporations are hoovering all the Bitcoin. I kind of agree with you on there is Bitcoin and then there is the fiat system, and everything else is like an evolution of fiat, but really the real cryptocurrency that is holding value is Bitcoin. And then you have got stablecoin as still, I consider that still part of the fiat system in a way, and that definitely a very important settlement layer as like an intermediate step. Then the other point that you mentioned that I said, oh God, it's so right. It's about longevity. So H100 means living 100 years.
Healthy
to 100. This is a new target. I like it. And it's true. There is a lot of similarity. If you think about longevity and you think about sustainability between Bitcoin and healthcare. And it's so interesting that actually a healthcare company is adopting this strategy.
Yeah, I mean, especially preventive health, because that's where I think more importantly, Bitcoiners, they do not rely on centralized system that should take care of them without having the power themselves. So Bitcoiners tends to design strategies where they can be self-reliant, they can be the sovereign individual. Yeah. And that's where you see a lot of, that's the match between the Bitcoiners. It's all about scarce assets, right? And health is one of the few very important scare assets you want to take care of and build a strategy around.
It's so true. And you can actually prevent if you take some steps. And that's why, invest in Bitcoin is definitely something clever that somebody should do without trying to get into at the bottom, but, do more a dollar cost averaging strategy. So tell me more about how are you doing this? How are you adding Bitcoin? Because we talk about sustainability and that kind of like the common thing that I want to bring happening here? So you are a public listed company. There are investors, right? And when you are investor, you need also think about their value. How do you build, shareholder value? How do you manage expectation? How are you going to be a sustainable company? Something that we are seeing, obviously, with the capital markets is that all these Bitcoin Treasury companies are keep buying Bitcoin with different kind of capital market solution. They are raising capital, they are doing convertible notes. But, it sounds like that some of these approaches might not be sustainable, right? So tell me the way you are doing and how do you think about sustainability in that sense?
Yeah, I think what you need to manage is basically your debt side of things. We actually took on a lot of debt early, and because I think in the early phase you have more flexibility because your stock and the reaction will go quicker. So we took on a lot of convertible debt. Most of what we have raised today is actually convertible debt. But because the stock price rises so quickly, 98% of it's already converted into equity. So today it's no risk anymore. And we own the Bitcoin fully. From here, we would still use convertible debt, but we will more focus on Bitcoin denominated debt, which means that we take on one Bitcoin as debt and we have to pay back one Bitcoin if it doesn't catch premium. If you do that with fiat, that could be a high return, but it also can be a high risk if the stock doesn't catch a premium. That being said, we are also now exploring with Stocker the first fully tokenized Bitcoin denominated convertible loan, where you can pay with Bitcoin and basically create a yield on your Bitcoin. If the stock catch a premium, you will earn a yield on your Bitcoin, which will be the first that I'm aware of fully tokenized convertible bond made for the Bitcoiners. And the debt will be held in Bitcoin. So also no real credit risk per se. On top of that, we are exploring ATM models where we have another investor that can invest daily into the market, where we basically could raise money on a daily basis.
Super interesting what you said about having denominated convertible notes and debt. So would you do that on liquid? Yeah, okay. So it's very interesting because it's like building a financial product on Bitcoin, and I can understand it's quite early. So how do you think about, first of all, volatility of Bitcoin, how that would impact a product that is based on Bitcoin and not fiat?
So since it's based on Bitcoin, you always deliver back a Bitcoin. So if it goes up or if it goes down, it doesn't matter, because if I owe you one Bitcoin and how that is used directly into my balance sheet, I just give you your Bitcoin back. So the question is, are the stock price able to catch the premium, which is market standard around 35% above the strike price? Then we have the right to convert that Bitcoin into equity. So, and back, the investor gets shares, which they can sell in the market and potentially buy back more Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so that is a way and since Bitcoin Treasury companies has a highly correlation with Bitcoin price, you will most likely be able to buy back more Bitcoin than what you committed, which will then create Bitcoin, like native Bitcoin yield if it catches the premium.
What is the type of investors that you are talking to? Because not everybody understands Bitcoin, not everybody can buy directly Bitcoin. I mean, I'm talking here in the UK, but I'm sure in Europe as well. So some institution they can't really touch Bitcoin. So that's maybe why they're interested in a solution like that.
I think I listened to a speech by Ives, the founder of Toolbomb, the French asset management firm in Prague last week, and he said, like, this is not a new business model. It's actually a very old business model, because in the 1600s was a group of private individuals that raised capital to buy gold, and that company ended up being Bank of England. And the question is, like, what can we use Bitcoin for in the future? I think most people don't understand how much we can use Bitcoin in the future. So the valuable asset you're raising today with cheap fiat, it's actually just absorbing all the allocated capital in public and private markets. So if you buy a general stock today, it has a pretty poor performance. The Magnificent Seven drive most of the profit, and they are priced like 50, 70, 80 times earnings. So it's not about real value in the stock markets anymore. It's just like a future prediction of what the company can do. When Warren Buffett started, he basically bought things like 3 times earnings, 5 times earnings. He just sit still for 5 years and he earned his money back. Those options are very few in today's market. And this is a way where Bitcoin can absorb that mismanaged capital into something that are real and sound that I personally believe will have lots of potential to generate income in the future.
Financial Fox is brought to you by Hive Digital Technologies, one of the fastest growing publicly listed Bitcoin miners. By the end of the year, they plan to quadruple their operational footprint, representing 3% of the global Bitcoin network. Hive was the first to implement an AI strategy in crypto mining and is fully committed to sustainability with green power data center in Canada, Sweden, and Paraguay. Their focus is on scaling a lean, shareholder-driven company that makes a positive impact on communities they serve. If your brand or company is exploring AI, check out their Buzz HPC tools for innovative solutions. Visit hivedigitaltechnologies.com and buzzhpc.ai to learn more. Tell me more about the investors, conversation you are having, and I know the relationship with Adam back that you have. It will be interesting to understand, the feedback that you got at the beginning, the investor you're working with, and also from another perspective, how he's planning to support the company growing.
So we were very lucky to get Adam in on our first round of Convertible.
How you do?
I don't really know. I've known him for quite some time and I sent him a message and he responded. So we have since then, he's been very supportive. He's now one of our biggest shareholders. And we basically design everything more or less with him. And that, of course, has attracted a lot of family offices from our network in FinPeers that are pro-Bitcoin. I mean, if you don't believe in Bitcoin, you shouldn't invest in Bitcoin Treasury companies, even if you're a speculator. You just shouldn't. So it's very much investors that are already positive on the future of Bitcoin.
Okay. Do you want to tell us a bit about the agreement and the way that the agreement you have with Adam and how he's going to support the company as kind of like an example of, an investor alignment with a Bitcoin treasury company?
Yeah, so we have no specific agreement with Adam other than the tranches he has subscribed to, which is done when he subscribed and the other investors subscribe. We do that convertibles at the premium to the market. Mm-hmm. So let's say the price is 1 today, they get a convertible that has a strike price of, for example, 1.3. So, which means that they invest 30% above the market price and it needs to catch another premium for us to basically.
What do you think about these premiums? I mean, are they sustainable? Is that something that, because that's kind of like one of the key questions of old-fashioned, fund manager, they ask, why I need to pay a premium, and what is a sensible premium to pay?
Is it sustainable? I just think that the investors that invest fiat today into Bitcoin treasury companies value the Bitcoin more than the fiat. First of all, you pay premium because of downside protection. It's not an equity deal. It's a loan. And if the stock doesn't perform, you get your money back. That's how it's structured. The company gets paid for that downside protection. So instead of investing spot Bitcoin, you can invest into a convertible loan. If it doesn't catch premium of 30%, then you get your money back. So it's an instrument that actually has some protection around it. If it let it stay as a convertible loan.
Okay. I have a question about regulation because I'm not so familiar with what is the regulatory landscape in Sweden, especially for a public listed company. Was that easy to kind of get this strategy approved, or did you have some kind of challenges with regulators?
I think everyone that has tried to orange pill anyone knows that it's not an easy task. Like, It's a lot of education that needs to be done. That is true for investors. That is also true for employees. And of course, also accountants, fiduciaries, lawyers. Like they're not used to dealing with Bitcoin that way where Bitcoiners are. So it's of course a lot of education needed, and we spend a lot of time trying to educate the relevant parties to make this work.
Yeah, I know it's a long-term process, but really worthwhile. How are you going to manage the pressure around Bitcoin volatility? Because there is a lot of pressure in, dealing with this strategy. What's your plan in managing that, especially if there are some swings in the price of Bitcoin?
Nothing really. We measure one KPI, and that's Bitcoin per share. We have structured our loans for 5-year terms. So we have very, very long time paying back the debt. So volatility is part of the Bitcoin journey, but it has way more up days than down days. But we know both sides can be brutal. It's part of the journey. We will just structure the company so we always have liquidity to survive hard times. We will also survive when it's harder to raise capital. And all this is all about liquidity management for the operational expenses. And I would say to manage that you don't take too much debt on, especially when you grow bigger.
Yeah, I think the liquidity management is a very important point. You have to make sure that you have got cash to get the PLC going. So tell me about H100 is a healthcare company. What's the plan with the healthcare business?
Again, we are maximizing Bitcoin per share as the main KPI, but again, the overlap between longevity and Bitcoiners is very strong in my opinion. And we will see lots of initiatives being launched other than what we have in our portfolio companies today. We own a portfolio company that do online coaching, digital exercise and nutrition coaching. But on top of that, we see a lot of initiatives could be launched. Nothing finalized yet, but that will definitely be where we will make our own niche.
Okay, super interesting. I'm into yoga, so we should have a chat.
Yeah, exactly. I shared on X the other day that we should do a Bitcoin longevity retreat.
I can teach yoga, but it's just so interesting. And I do think it's a very important point that this alignment between Bitcoin and longevity. Would you like maybe to expand a bit on the Bitcoin per share metrics that you use to evaluate your business?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you can increase Bitcoin per share, then you need to have an operational discipline. Both on the operational side, you have to understand you can't use too much money. That's one. And eventually you have to issue financial instruments that benefit all shareholders measured in Bitcoin, because we believe in Bitcoin long term. And the third thing is that eventually you need to have operational cash flow or SATS flow, which I saw someone on X mention the other day, to basically use the organization you have to buy more Bitcoin. We are a company that believe that Bitcoin is the new hurdle rate and we should create alpha on top of it.
Brilliant. Sander, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great.
Thank you, Steffi. Thank you so much for having me.